Cool. Uh, Hi guys. So I am going to be having Sajal here with us today, and Sajal is the founder of the Boringnews newsletter. And the idea today is to discuss everything about the newsletter industry, about the media industry in India with him. Welcome, Sajal, to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jugal.
Great, great. Sajal, just to give the audience a small intro about you. I know that you've been abroad in the US and in London, and you were an investment banker earlier, right? So could you just tell the audience what exactly your background is?
I come from a family of entrepreneurs and decided to be something different. The most creative thing I could find was engineering.
Okay,
So I went to the US. I went to the University of California, Los Angeles. I did my computer engineering there.
right,
And then, like a total corporate sellout, I went straight into investment banking.
right. And this is which year? Which year did you go out?
2012 to 2016.
2016. Okay,
Yeah. Total corporate sellout move, didn't use my engineering skills at all.
right.
And I worked for Bank of America Merrill Lynch in their uh, technology, media, and telecom group.
Right.
So we did IPOs, mergers, and acquisitions.
All right.
And so I did that for about 3 years. Then first two attempts didn't get the H1B.
Okay.
Before they did the third attempt, I proactively told the team to push me to London.
All right.
It's like, let's experience London. I always knew I wanted to come back to India. I really believe that you need to be an entrepreneur in your 20s.
Right. Okay.
There's a lot of statistical evidence as to why you should do this.
Okay.
And I thought it'd be nice to get some European experience. So when I moved to London, I got my H1B as well.
All right.
So when I was in London for a year, I had a choice either go back to the US or stay there.
Okay.
And I did, in the middle of the pandemic, my parents were really missing me, and I really understood the value of having family around.
Okay.
So I moved back to India. I took
And
one
you
of those.
you mentioned you were a part of the
Yeah,
Marathon.
I took a Vande Bharat flight back.
Right.
It
Right.
was
That must have been a different experience.
yeah, the pretty pretty insane actually. So I
Okay.
had to actually pack up my entire house
Right.
and put it into like two suitcases and
Okay.
leave, and
Okay.
then still work remotely for a month before I like actually called it quits.
All right.
And
So just coming to the fact that you started this newsletter, so you immediately came back and you thought, what led you to kind of jump into this media business? Were you having some kind of clients? You mentioned that you were working with some of the media companies as your clients while you were in London.
yeah,
So yeah, could you just
yeah. So I really started to only look at media clients when I moved to London. Before this, I only did like semiconductor technology and software
okay,
companies.
okay,
And I spent a lot of time in the classified space.
all right,
And what I realized is that these media companies are extremely powerful
okay,
in terms of their business models, right?
okay,
So, speaking purely from a banking standpoint,
all right,
when you look at the unit economics of acquiring a customer and then keeping them engaged long term,
right,
if you provide a product that actually delivers value to them,
right,
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 that they would need on a periodic basis, especially something like the news.
okay,
Like you think about your parents today,
right,
whatever newspaper they were reading 20 years ago, they're still reading that today.
makes
And
sense.
the customer acquisition cost at that time was whatever was paid to get them to actually start using your product.
Right,
And after that, the lifetime value is like for 20, 30 years, right?
okay,
So from a LTV to CAC basis,
okay.
the economics are insane. The only hard part is can you keep people engaged for 10-year periods?
But you know what? This is quite contrary to what we actually listen to or read in the media itself. That running media businesses is extremely difficult. You find that newsrooms are constantly slashing the number of employees that they have, and it's become very difficult to run. It's only you hear the big names like the New York Times or like the Economist who are able to get that audience to pay for their content. So what I'm actually listening to this is quite like very different from um, the usual stuff that people say about media companies, that it's very difficult. Money is very difficult to make out there. So that's pretty interesting. What you're saying is that if the media company is engaged enough, I mean, if the media company is engaging its readers enough, then you're saying that the money
Yeah,
is there.
so when I say engagement, I don't mean it from a vanilla time spent standpoint.
Okay.
I mean engagement in terms of impact,
All right.
right? And impact varies from person to person.
All
So
right.
the question is, can you build a content distribution platform that creates impact? When you think about newsrooms today,
Right.
all the news that they're putting out there is quite commoditized.
Makes
In
sense.
fact, I would say it's a B grade replacement to soap opera. So soaps,
I,
right?
I
TV
agree with you
soaps.
there. I agree with you there.
So
Yes.
think about it. Why did we have this debate culture of screaming at each other really pop up? We lived in a generation when there was no Netflix, there was no
Right.
Amazon Prime,
Right.
right?
Right.
So what did you do for entertainment? You could either watch a TV serial where, in Kyuki Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahu Thi, by the time the auntie comes out of the kitchen, 30 minutes are over, or you could watch something fun on TV,
Right.
which is a news debate where people are screaming at each other and, making
It's
the
a
other person
version
look
of
bad.
live reality show kind
Exactly,
of a
it's a
thing,
live
right?
reality show,
Right.
right?
But those are the economics of the entire thing, right? But I'll just quickly jump back to the fact that you saw that the economics were very strong as per your reviews while you were working with. So is that what led you to come back and kind of
So look at it from New York Times standpoint, right?
all right?
Roughly 50% revenues are subscriptions, roughly
Right.
50% revenues are ads.
Okay.
It trades at a very healthy multiple
Right.
when you look at media companies in general. And then you start to wonder why is that,
Okay.
right? And you start to look for competitors who have similar dynamics.
Okay.
Now, the readers of the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, they really believe that they're getting value out of the content that they're consuming
Right.
because it's all expert generated content.
All right.
Most of the news that we consume in India is coming from the wires.
Okay.
90% of it is coming from Press Trust of India, Reuters,
Okay.
Bloomberg, whatnot,
Okay.
regurgitated a little bit and
Okay.
sent out. So the
Okay.
value addition is quite limited versus the New York Times, almost every article is written by their writers after a lot of research,
Okay.
right? And so when you look at these businesses in terms of impact,
Right.
New York Times's impact is a lot higher than that of the Times of India, which is why you see a revenue mismatch in terms of dynamics. See the Times of India group on Times Internet, their website, they say they have 550 million MAUs, I think.
All right.
That's multiples of the MAUs that Google or Facebook has in our country.
Okay.
But the revenue is a small percentage of what Google and Facebook makes. Because Google and Facebook have a much higher impact in terms of the content that they're serving you. Now, whether that's good impact, bad impact is a different question.
Okay.
It's commoditized content versus personalized content. That is where the differentiation lies.
All right. So that's one of the differentiators that you saw in India, and you decided to come back and kind of start something in this space.
So for me, it was, if you really think about the biggest problems we face as a society,
Right.
I don't think anybody is satisfied with the quality of news.
That's definitely there. I agree with you.
And I can understand the apprehension of the VC community in investing in this space because it's really hard to capture attention and compete with the likes of the social media giants,
Right.
right?
Right.
However, it's a problem that must be solved.
Okay.
And if you're able to solve it, you can build an amazing business, especially because we're going through a digitization revolution in our country right now.
Right.
Everybody is getting access to 4G.
Right.
So this is the time during which the biggest businesses for the next 20 years are going to be built.
Okay.
So let's say you don't build the biggest business, but if you're able to target a particular niche and really drive impact on that, you can build a very sustainable business in the long run.
Great. Great. So which year was this that you came back and started this?
So I started end of 2020. I moved back mid 2020.
All right.
Took me some time to find the sort of people that I wanted to start off with.
Right.
And then March 2021, we came out of beta on our newsletter, and it's been running since then.
All right. March 2020.
March 2021.
2021 is when it started actually
Yeah,
operational, and today we are at August 2022.
yeah. Almost 1.5 years.
Almost 1.5 years. So, so it's the boring news, right? People can come and subscribe to it, and it's a newsletter. Can you just explain a little bit about how exactly are you kind of creating content? Are you curating content? And how is it that I know it's a newsletter format. I've seen it, and it's succinct news, and probably do you provide links as well? Can you just explain a little bit about how you go about the content presentation? Because you've spoken about the fact that people are producing non-engaging content. So how are you solving it through your newsletter, and how?
Yeah. So for us, our USP is that we want to make you generally aware.
Okay.
And the way we do it is because we're in the newsletter format,
Right.
we send out a newsletter just once every morning.
Okay.
So we actually have enough time to make sure that the news that we're presenting to you is legitimate, fact checked,
Okay.
relevant,
Okay.
right? The audience that we have is Gen Z and millennials.
Okay.
So 18 to 30 is like 88% of our audience.
All right.
And we design the newsletter in a manner in which somebody wants to spend 30 seconds, 3 minutes, or 30 minutes
Right.
can use the newsletter. So look, 80 to 90% of the audience is one that just wants to spend 30 seconds,
Right.
get up to speed on the most important, relevant headlines from a
Right.
policy, international affairs,
Right.
business, legal, because legal is a big part of Indian news discourse,
Right.
and sports.
Right.
Right. So, how can you give them 10, 15 headlines with a small one liner gist?
All right.
Is the way we appeal to 80 to 90% of our audience.
All right.
Then you've got another small percentage of the audience that wants to spend 3 minutes. So they'll want to go through a short 100, 150 word summary.
Okay.
And they'll probably want to do that for the first top five stories.
Okay.
And then they just want a rundown of headlines. So this is for the 3 minute audience.
All right.
And for the 30-minute audience, this could be somebody who's just addicted to the news,
All
or
right.
it could be somebody who's preparing for their civil services examinations,
All right.
where they'll go through the go deeper buttons of every article,
Right.
read the detailed pieces, go through every category icon, and read each of the articles that we generate. So we'll generate about 40 to 45 articles on a daily edition basis.
So okay, so let me just break it down for the for the people who are listening in. How many subs do you have right now, subscribers?
About 17,500.
17,500, and this you've been able to generate over a period of 1.5 years, like you said,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You mind explaining the open rate that's there?
So we're at, for the last month, we're averaging about 30% open rates.
30% open rate. And then, I want to come down to this classification where you said 30 second, 3 minute, and 30. Any breakdown of what people are actually engaging with? Is it the 30
So we
seconds?
don't really know, because email doesn't give you the ability to track time spent.
All right.
But when we did some focus group studies,
All
we
right.
saw that on average, we'll see about 80-85% of the audience spend about 30 to 45 seconds on the email newsletter.
Right.
And the remaining audience will spend anywhere between 1 minute 40 seconds to 25 minutes.
Okay. Okay. And is this content being curated by you guys, or are you originally writing it?
So for us, what is the first step that you can solve, right?
Right.
See, when people think about how media newsletters or media companies, new age media companies are trying to address new problems in media, is they believe in the power of original content. And,
Right.
and I agree with them, right? However, 70% of news is commoditized.
Right.
30% of it is editorial, where it is an opinion, it is analysis, whatnot. We believe that there's a problem with the first 70% itself, because the way stories are written, our speed comes first,
Okay.
and they're a bit all over the place. So
Okay.
when you read an article, they're taking you through a journey, and when you end out of when you're done reading the article, you don't really know what's happened.
Okay.
So for us, the idea is in bullets. Can we tell people what the one-liner is? What is the crux of the matter?
Right.
What are the who, what, where, why, and how?
Right.
And our writing process is designed such that we take news from the wires,
Right.
we distill it down into these points,
Okay.
and then rewrite it without any adjectives or personal opinion from the editorial side.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we are a curation and summarization company.
All right.
Yeah.
So, but the curation is not happening from other media companies. It's actually happening from the wire
Yeah,
services.
what a Times of India or an Economic Times would use, we
Yeah.
use pretty much the same wires.
Right, right, right. Makes sense. Yes, because when I tried, I mean, I'm actually a regular consumer and I open up your mails pretty frequently. One thing which I realized was that if other newsletters, when they provide clicks where you can, I mean, links, sorry, where you can get routed to that entire article, it's usually to another media site.
Yeah.
So, like a hustle will provide you a link to, let's say, a tech in Asia news, something.com or a New York Times and so on. Yours actually led to your site
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah.
I mean, we weren't being routed anywhere else. Okay, so that's great. So can you just tell us about how did you go about like the go-to market strategy? Because in India in itself, um, there's always there's never been that culture of newsletters per se. It's come in very recently, and secondly, I don't even know how many people know about Substack. It's
Yeah.
people primarily from the tech space, right? And forgetting Substack, it's also about, do people really how did you go about it? I think let's just start with that.
So look, it's a marriage of convenience,
Okay.
us and newsletters.
Okay.
So what we really want to be building is a daily information marketplace wherein for every user, no matter how mainstream or niche their daily content requirements are. When I say daily content, I mean information that expires in 24 to 36 hours.
Right.
We want to be the guys that go to platform where once a morning you get updated on all the niches that you care about. So,
Right.
you're at Pratilipi, you probably care a lot about the podcast space, what
Right.
people are doing here, what are the major content creators doing here.
Right.
All this information is being generated
Right.
across blogs. India has like 6 to 7 million blogs.
Okay.
There's a ton of podcast guys. There are a ton of people who are writing emails that go out to like 200, 300 people. There are people running channels on Telegram. So the
Right.
content is all out there.
Right.
The problem is that it's a fragmented user experience, right?
Okay.
So I need to be aware as a user about where my content that I need daily is available. The discovery burden is on me,
Okay.
and then the consumption burden is also on me because I have an app for a couple of things. I've got an aggregation platform for a couple of things. I got some newsletters, some WhatsApp groups, some people I follow on Twitter, etc.
Right.
So the burden is all on the reader. That's where we want to be,
All
right?
right.
We want to be solving this pain point.
Okay. Okay.
So the problem for us was we're a completely bootstrapped company,
Okay.
right? So when
Okay.
you're a bootstrap founder, every rupee matters a lot. We
Definitely.
don't really have a marketing budget.
All
I
right.
think we must have spent less than a lakh of our own money in terms of marketing so
Oh,
far.
that's great. I was actually about to come to this question, as to the difference between, so you said you have 17,000 subscribers, right? The idea is how much of it was paid and how much of it was
So
organic.
85% of it is all organic.
Okay.
Uh,
How did you start it? Like, how did you get that initial audience in?
so the first 100, 200 subscribers is you send out WhatsApp messages
Friends,
to
so forth.
friends and
Uh,
ask them to send it out to a bunch of groups.
right.
And then we had about 150 to 200 subscribers, and we started testing for 2 to 3 months.
Okay.
So we'd send out the newsletter, get the feedback, see how their behavior is in terms of clicks and opens,
Okay.
and what needs to change from a design perspective, etc.
Right.
And we were not really targeting Gen Z or millennials.
Okay.
We thought news is consumed by everybody. It's the largest content vertical.
Right.
Let's see what the market decides is going to be our target group.
Okay.
Surprisingly, 18 to 30 was the age group that
It,
really liked the way we were presenting the content.
okay. I think it's because they like that quirkiness that comes in the content.
See, the quirkiness comes from newsletters like the Morning Brew, where
Definitely.
they write with a particular tone.
Right.
We have a lot of self-imposed constraints because we want to come across as a news platform that is fact first,
Okay.
and we don't provide any editorial opinion. So the minute you bring in any kind of quirkiness or satire, there's a chance of you being branded as looking down on some type of content or looking up to somebody,
Okay.
and we don't want that as a platform, right?
Right.
So that's why we don't have a face to our company either.
Okay.
So a lot of self-imposed constraints on that part.
All right.
That's why we're a bit boring, right? You remove all the masala from news and you're left with what we provide.
Boring. All right. So you said, the first initial 100, 200. What was it after that?
So after that, it was a lot of growth hack strategies
Okay.
because at that bootstrap stage, you've got to think about how do you not spend money and get users on board.
Right.
So we had lumpy phases of growth.
Okay.
So we had this campus ambassador program,
Oh,
right?
this is, yeah.
But we gamified the entire approach, and
Okay.
we'd hire 200 plus interns every month,
All right.
and we train them every week.
Okay.
It was a bit like we're giving you an understanding of what does it take to do sales and marketing in the
Okay.
digital realm.
Okay.
We'll teach you about various strategies. You
Okay.
got to go implement it, experiment, and come back with results in terms of how many signups you're able to get.
Okay.
So a lot of college students across tier one city colleges throughout India
Right.
were quite intrigued and interested in what we were doing.
Okay.
And there were some students who got 5 subscribers, some students who got 450 subscribers.
Okay. That's the maximum, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
Right. Someone got.
450 plus
Okay.
subscribers. It's crazy. I was
Right.
never expecting anything like this.
Right.
And that's how we scaled from roughly no users to about 7,500 users.
Okay.
Then we realized, okay, our content is pretty good.
Okay.
Let's look at what our main verticals are. So legal news is something that we write quite well. And when you look at the legal news space, there's Bar and Bench and Live Law, who have
Okay.
some really solid newsletters.
Okay.
But they're very, very complex
Okay.
and very dense.
All right.
And when you look at the lawyer community, there are these internal general counsels who need to be generally aware of what's going on. They don't need that level of depth.
Right.
So we have had a subscriber who is a Supreme Court lawyer,
Okay.
and he runs an organization which is a sort of a fraternity for all these internal general counsels of corporates.
Okay.
So we struck a partnership with them where our legal news goes onto their platform,
All right.
and in exchange, their membership base becomes our subscribers.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
we have about 2,200 of India's leading lawyers reading our newsletter.
That's awesome.
So that was another hacky method of adding another
Okay.
couple of subscribers.
All right.
Then there were college fests,
Okay.
and we don't want to pay, right?
Okay.
But we're really good at building newsletters and sending out newsletters.
Right.
So we went up to these colleges and we said, listen, today when you run a fest, what are your memories? Sometimes you have people who've taken photographs. The winners really care about their medals and certificates,
Right.
but they want to be able to share all of this.
Okay.
We can be the newspaper for your fest. We can design a custom email for you,
All right.
which has all the major updates of what has happened in your fest, who are the winners, who
Okay.
are the guest participants, feature them and send it out to whoever you want us to send it out to.
Okay.
We'll take the burden of designing the email and sending it out. In exchange, we'll work on some agreements through which you will promote us.
Okay.
Either you make us a part of your fest in some way,
Right.
or whatnot. And then we tied up with a couple of youth leadership organizations. This gave us another couple thousand subscribers.
All right. Okay.
So lumpy growth that way.
Okay.
And then we have an advisor who gives us $200 of Facebook ad credit every month.
Okay.
And we started to realize that our audience base is this 18 to 30 meme consuming audience,
Right.
who've been part of a lot of viral trends.
Right.
So we want to be not controversial in our content,
Right.
but we are very controversial in our marketing.
Okay.
So we hate on all the media personalities in equal measure. So,
Okay.
we've been running a couple of campaigns. Maybe I don't want to talk about it maybe one of your readers will actually get targeted through this.
Okay.
But, like the Pauri, ये हमारी Pauri चल रही है. If you've seen that Instagram,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We've done a bunch of things,
All right.
which are quite funny and quirky on that front.
All right.
And that has given us a couple thousand subscribers off late. So, about
Alright.
15% of our audience overall has come through this form of performance marketing.
Okay. So it's always like a period of ups and downs,
Yeah.
and then you need to design or you need to look out for a new growth hack to kind of come up with the next slump,
Exactly.
right? How big do you think this market is for you in India?
So when we think about newsletters, and you have to look at who are the biggest guys.
Right.
So you have FinShots,
Right.
5 lakh subscribers.
Right.
You've got the Ken and the Morning Context.
Yep.
I think the Ken has 30K paid subscribers, and I think it's 300K overall or something like
Okay.
that.
I'm not sure about
You've
that.
got Morning Context now at 100K.
Okay.
You've got Money Control. The Money Control Pro newsletter has 330,000 subscribers who are paid.
Okay.
And when you think about what happened in the pandemic, a lot of college students, whether they were in tier 1 cities or tier 4 cities,
Right.
had to start using their laptops and email to start communicating with their teachers and consuming content for their classes. So there's a sudden boost of email savviness. And
Okay.
email is not really used as a content distribution platform or a community building platform in India today.
Okay.
Email is used as a flyer distribution platform and a transaction update platform by most brands.
Okay.
So when you think about an employee who is a 9 to 5 job,
Great.
they actually have their email open almost all the time.
All the time. Yeah.
So you can actually engage them if your content is powerful enough.
Okay.
When I was at Bank of America, we used to get an update from our equity capital markets team.
Right.
It was just a short 500-word email.
Right.
Told us about the major updates just before the markets are going to kick off.
Right.
And initially I thought, why are they doing this? They're making some analyst work overtime to build this stuff out, but it became a habit for me. So the thing is, we also experimented with taking a random list of emails
Okay.
somehow shadily from the internet.
Right.
Took about 2,000, 3,000 emails.
Right.
Just added them to our system.
Right.
Just to see what is going to end up happening.
Right.
65% of those people opened our email, and over 50% of them are still our subscribers.
Wow, that's awesome.
So the power of how big this can be is how quickly can email become mainstream in our country. And
Alright.
the usage is only growing.
All right.
Because it's an intent-first platform. You think about Web3,
Okay.
what Web3 is supposed to be, right?
Right.
You're supposed to have synchronization at the protocol level.
Right.
That's really what email is. There's no real differentiation between Gmail and Yahoo,
Okay.
right?
Right.
So emails come chronologically, and the user decides where they want to pay attention, what email they want to open, what they want to report to spam, right?
Right.
As a creator, you don't have all that control like Instagram has, where they decide what you're going to be seeing next.
Right. But do you think this there's going to be some kind of a vertical differentiation later on for you, because like you said, the legal community is one community which really you've kind of gotten inside that community and they consume your news. Then there's another of that 18 to 30 audience which is meme consuming. They they want to consume your content. So is that like a vertical kind of a breakdown? Do you see in the near future happening?
100%, right? So when I mentioned my daily information marketplace that we
Right.
want to build out,
Right.
you reach that stage once you've added hundreds of verticals, whether they're micro verticals or massive verticals.
Right.
So when we think about how we want to build our business, uh, us being a content creator is similar to Amazon Basics apparel in the Amazon ecosystem.
All right.
So you address the largest content vertical yourself, which sets the tone for your brand
Right.
and the perception that people have, right? Now,
All
the
right.
hardest thing to do is getting people from a variety of ideological spectrums to rely on you.
Right.
That is the biggest challenge to solve.
But I think, I just wanted to understand one thing. What exactly is the moat in this industry? Because, see, you have competitors like the Signal who are doing the same thing in India. There's someone called the Newsberry which is doing it, right? I think you guys are all fighting for the same audience, right? How do you differentiate yourself apart from the content perspective? So I know you, let's say one will have quirky content, one, like you said, you'll have facts based on the, via services, not curation. Somebody might just go out and curate. uh, do you see any kind of moat building up for you in the near future, or what do you plan to do about that?
So look, in terms of look, all the newsletters that you mentioned, I
Right.
love them. I'm a subscriber to all of them.
Same here,
I'm
same here.
subscribed to over 100 newsletters because this
Right,
is what I do on a day-to-day basis.
right,
When you think about moat, right? People are always, even in the edtech space,
right.
people have been struggling to find a moat which is not content. And the reality is that content drives consumption,
All right,
and content will continue to drive consumption.
all right,
And it has to be all on the basis of impact.
all right.
My personal belief is quirkiness or the style of writing, people get bored over time quite quickly.
Okay,
So maybe some newsletters will be able to keep engagement for a long period of time,
okay,
but people will get bored over a period of time, right?
okay.
It's all about impact. This is why people are still consuming news in the physical form in the newspaper industry today, right?
Right.
The circulation is still insane.
Okay.
And they've been writing this way for several years because it's about, can I get well researched information in the physical form, which is why they're able to engage the 30 plus audience
So you're
in
saying
that period.
content is going to be the main
Content
driver
is
of.
king. Content will always remain king. Like look at Berkshire Hathaway. If you've
Right.
seen their website, it's the ugliest website in the world. If you look at that user experience, it's shit. But people are on that website all the time. People who are part of that community go there, look forward to Warren Buffett's letters, and that is what's going to continue to sell,
All
right?
right, all right.
Form factors, whether it's a reel, whether it's a podcast, those will change. Some will go up in trend, some will go down in trend. But if you're able to build a marketplace which can allow creators the complete flexibility of whichever form factor they want to choose.
Right.
Right. When you think about the burden on a creator today, and because we are creators ourselves, we've learned the burdens.
Right.
The burden is not just content creation and engaging your community; it's everything else that comes along.
Exactly, exactly.
Right? Marketing, accounting,
Sales.
HR, whatnot.
Right.
If you can solve those burdens for them, and you can give them a platform, you say, "Listen, on the merit of your content, I will find you your community."
Okay.
And then all you have to do is put out good quality content and engage with your community.
So you know what? I'll just come to this question right away. Is that there's this one newsletter company I just recently discovered. It's called Workweek in the US, right?
Okay.
Right, and it's actually exactly what you're mentioning. They have a central team which takes care of all the non-core functions, right? Which is something like a marketing, like you said, a design and a social media and a growth marketing and all that. And then there are influencers all around, like they're writers. So, for example, there's someone called Nick Sharma. I think he's a big guy in terms of D2C marketing in the
Okay.
West. This is based out of the US, right?
Yeah.
And they have very hardcore, typical topics like climate change. Somebody is writing about just D2C marketing. Somebody is just writing about engineering or whatever is happening in that sector. So that thing is, it becomes more like a newsletter studio,
Right.
right? Where they're supporting you with all the non-core functions and a lot of benefits around it. And you as a writer can continue with your job, but you can also continue writing, and we'll do kind of a revenue share.
Right.
Are you speaking of something similar?
No, because here I'm thinking about everything within the ecosystem of the Boringnews company. So
Okay.
imagine if I use a distribution platform like an app.
Right.
I want to solve all your various content creation burdens that you have. Now, everything else that comes in terms of social media marketing and stuff, that's all external awareness.
Right.
If I'm able to achieve a critical mass of users on my platform itself,
Right.
within my user base, I will help you find your community.
Okay. So you're looking at a user first strategy rather
Yeah.
than coming out with an influencer and gaining their
Yeah.
users, right? So just one more thing, coming from this conversation, you mentioned that a lot of people tend to go away, like they'll get bored of that style of writing and bored of that style of content. How many unsubs have you seen, in this entire journey, in this 1.5 years? If you can just
Yeah. So our unsub rate is from 0.1% daily is when we started out,
Okay.
and now it's at 0.01% daily. So the averages for newsletters globally is around 0.1%.
Okay.
But over time, we've become better with the users that we've got on board.
All right.
And you've seen that with our open rates going up as well. So we have actually learned the hard way about driving open rates up from 13% to 30%.
And how did that happen?
So a mix of two things. So
Okay.
the first part is, of course, your content. If
Okay.
you look at our newsletters when we started out, they were absolute garbage. Like, I can't believe we put out this kind of content, right?
All right.
When we put out at that time, we were like, oh, this is amazing.
Right.
We're the best. But now when you look back and you look at our quality today, and I still think we can improve 2x, 3x.
Okay.
Right? There are some mistakes that we make that
Right.
we can get better at. So that's 50% of the battle. The other 50% of the battle is getting into the primary inbox.
Okay.
Gmail's algorithms are pretty sophisticated in terms of classification of emails into spam, promotions, updates,
It's
and primary.
right.
So how do you get in the primary inbox?
Okay.
You can read through the first 20 pages on Google, and you will still won't know everything that you need to know. And
All
we've
right.
learned everything through experimentation.
All right.
So we have built our own tech stack
Okay.
such that we could pretty much be a SendGrid or a MailChimp. We can send out email newsletters for anybody.
Okay.
And in fact, this has turned into a way of survival for us right now because we are helping B2B businesses launch their own content specific newsletters
Okay.
where
That's
we do
awesome.
everything from content to email deliverability for them.
All right. So, let's jump in right there.
Yeah.
This is the section I wanted to come to is about revenue.
Yeah.
Right. So far, I'm assuming that the Boring News as a newsletter, I don't see any ads. I don't see any
We
subscription.
have since the last 2 months, we've been featuring a couple of brands.
Very few. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So, like you said, so how does the revenue generation happen? Is it the B2B thing that you
Yeah,
mentioned,
so
right?
there are two main things, right? So
Right.
advertisements will definitely be a major revenue source.
Right.
And when you look at CPM rates,
Right.
email is like 20x more expensive than YouTube
Okay.
because the time spent is
Right.
much higher.
So, are you looking at something like in India? Are you saying it's 2,000 to 3,000 CPM
No, CPMs in India will vary from 800 rupees to 1,500
for the
for the
newsletters?
newsletters.
All right, because I know Spotify is about 300, 400 for their premium audience
Right.
in India.
Right.
So you're saying 800 to
Yeah, I know newsletters were charging 3,000 rupees.
in India?
Yeah.
And these are Indian writers writing for an
Writing
Indian
for
audience.
Indian audiences,
Okay, amazing.
15,000 subs sort of.
Which one is it, if you don't mind?
I can't share because the founder shared the
All right.
details with me.
Makes sense.
But at some point, I will mention them so that
All
they
right.
get the right plug as well.
Right. All right. Cool. So yeah, coming back to the revenue, one is the advertising, and how what's been the response of the advertisers, for this medium particularly.
So a lot of them who we've spoken to, for them it's an area of experimentation.
All right.
So they've never, if anything, they've had their own email flyer distribution system like marketing,
Okay.
right? There are
Okay.
a ton of edtech companies that do this.
All right.
But as we've been speaking to stakeholders in the ecosystem, we've realized that there are a lot of businesses which are reliant on email. So there is a very, very famous fashion designer.
Right.
40% of our revenue comes through email marketing.
Okay. Awesome.
So there are people who really know how to leverage the power well. And the pitch to them has been, we'll get you access to our audience of
All right.
17,500 people
Right.
who are a very niche audience,
Right.
email savvy, a lot of your targeting burden is sort of taken care of. And they'll
Right.
spend a ton of time, in several seconds, if not a minute,
Right.
reading about you guys
Right.
versus, on social media, which is less than a second. So people have been quite intrigued. I'll be quite honest, the results have been mixed. So for some brands, we've done an excellent job,
Okay.
especially brands which have a freemium model and an entry level product which is free.
Okay.
For them, we've done a very solid job.
So what's the CTR that comes through on your emails? Open rate is 30%.
Yeah, so CTRs typically on a day-to-day basis we'll see about 1%.
All right. All right.
But when we run campaigns, we're encouraging people to click.
All right.
So at that time, we've seen CTRs go all the way up to 4.7%.
All right. So you give it some kind of prominent space, so you kind of make it very obvious
Yeah.
for the audience to click on
Yeah.
it.
So
All right.
we'll do it in a very native structure.
All right.
So there is a native article which we'll write about the particular brand, and usually the brands that we feature have relevance to our audience base.
Okay.
Especially folks in the education space, right?
All
I won't
right.
say edtech, but education generally.
All right.
Then we have a variety of different form factors.
Okay.
So we will, if they want to do surrogate content marketing, we have a section called tip ships.
Okay.
So there are brands who we've partnered with who want to showcase themselves as subject matter experts
All right.
in a particular aspect of life. Maybe it's hygiene, maybe it's investing,
All
whatnot.
right.
So then we make sure that the brand is featured as the provider of that intelligence, because
Okay.
you notice good industries like fintech,
Right.
edtech,
Right.
it seems almost commoditized, right? Everybody seems like they're doing the same thing. Like,
Right.
I can't tell the difference between Bharat Pay and Paytm. Like, this is my personal problem, right?
Okay.
I'm sure there is.
I'm
If you
sure.
speak to anybody over there, that's what they'll tell you. But the average Joe doesn't know the differentiation, right? So the question is, can you as a brand stay top of mind
Right.
without it seeming like you're advertising all the time, right? And content is a great way of doing that. If you can showcase yourself as a subject matter expert. So when we are pitching to brands, we always say, think Michelin star guide for Michelin tires, what that's done for them.
Exactly.
Alignment in brand values, and
Through
you can use
content.
surrogate content to stay top of mind. So now when I have to think about buying tires, I'm thinking of Michelin tires, at
All
least
right.
first.
All right.
Same thing with Sachin Tendulkar's MRF bat, right?
Makes sense.
It's almost similar, but over there, it's again, if you think about it, it's almost like content marketing, because like you're consuming cricket,
In a way, it's content
and
marketing.
and
Yes.
in a way, it's content marketing, right? So we've been telling a lot of brands that, okay, we can help you launch your own newsletter
Right.
from a content perspective, where you send a periodic email, maybe it's once a week, maybe it's once a month, but you're staying top of mind for your customer, and they're not feeling like you're advertising them, because you're showing them industry expertise.
Right.
So for example, you're a paints company, you
Right.
understand color combinations really, really well,
Right.
right? You know how to set up homes quite well. You know what paint goes with what kind of furniture. You can be doing so much in terms of a periodic magazine, if you will,
Exactly, exactly.
that
So,
goes straight into
so
your
what
inbox.
you're doing exactly is that you're going out to. So one is the advertising side, and the other side is you're saying that for a brand, let's say you're a paints brand, I'm going to define a content strategy, which is via email.
Yeah,
It's an email, right?
yeah.
So are you just providing the tech stack, or are you also providing the written content and everything?
So we do both,
All right,
depending on, we do either or both.
all right,
So there is a brand that we're working with where the content is coming straight from the CEO. He wants it to be a personal branding initiative.
right,
So there we're the delivery partner, making sure they're getting high open rates.
right.
There is a crypto company that we're working with where they want us to handle the content, but because they care about confidentiality, they want to send out the emails, but we'll help them optimize certain things that are tech stack,
Okay,
so the emails are getting high deliverability
all
into the
right,
primary
all
inbox.
right,
And then there is actually a paints brand that we have just got a verbal
okay,
commitment from,
all right,
where we'll do everything end to end.
all right. So are you profitable enough now, right now?
Not at all.
All right,
It's I came to a point uh, in April, May, when I
right.
actually thought about shutting down. So, I put a lot of my personal savings into this.
All right.
Investment banking paid quite well in the
Yeah.
US. The
If you don't
dollar to
mind,
rupee
how much have
conversion.
you put in so far?
I've put in about 75 lakhs
All right. So far.
so far.
All right.
A lot of mistakes along the way, right?
Okay.
So, email was a marriage of convenience, like I mentioned. It was a
Mm.
cheap distribution platform to start testing content style on.
All
Because
right.
for us, content was a biggest, fastest way to populate our ecosystem with a critical mass of users.
Right.
And we wanted to grow a lot faster than we have, right?
All right.
And we wanted to get into the marketing stream quite quickly as well. And then we saw we reached 10, 15,000, I think 10 or 12,000 subscribers. We
Right.
said, let's start building the app now,
Okay.
and let's get to beta testing in the app, have some data points which are meaningful, and now go to VCs and raise some money.
All right.
And our idea was the VCs are going to jump all over this, because we're solving a problem. We've been able to engage an audience that doesn't have any loyalty to anybody in the news ecosystem. They're going to love what we're doing.
Right.
VC community in India was not very receptive, to be
To a
quite
media
honest.
business. All right.
So generally, the feedback I got is, honestly, Sajal, two sectors we hate: apparel and news media.
All right.
We have no interest in investing in either sectors.
All
We've
right.
burnt our fingers multiple times.
Okay.
But I'll take it even more negatively. They didn't like my business. Let's just put it across
And
that way.
this is while you were just a content newsletter media company, or while this is, I mean, you became a tech company as
So
well. And
we were a year in.
all right.
We figured out, we didn't start B2B newsletters yet.
Right. Okay.
We were engaging our audience at about 20% open rates at this point
All right.
in April.
All right.
And we had 14,500 subscribers.
Okay.
This is when we went out to the VC market to raise money. And also, we timed it poorly because the Russia-Ukraine war was in full swing, and VC
All
money
right.
was sort of leaving the ecosystem to
Right.
an extent. People
Right.
were getting a little bit more stricter. But generally, I think even if we'd gone a little bit earlier, you would have probably gotten the same response, right?
But it's not about earlier. I would rather say that it becomes more easier for you. I mean, now the market is very different. It's very difficult to raise money. But I'm assuming now that you're also providing a tech stack which allows for that major question of scalability,
Yeah.
right? So I mean, I'm
Yeah,
just
no, see,
putting
necessity is a mother of invention.
right, right, right,
And for us, when I said we came to a point where I was so disappointed, I was like, yeah, I can't raise any money. I can't even raise $500,000.
right,
और मेरे जो दोस्त है, they're raising million, million and a half on an idea.
right.
और उनकी आइडिया मुझे समझ में भी नहीं आती है.
Okay,
So I was like very, very disappointed in myself, to be quite honest.
all right,
And I understood where the VCs are coming from. Look, man, they go through certain experiences
right,
and it's jaded them and they don't want to invest in
exactly.
certain spaces
Yeah,
altogether. And I've spoken to a bunch of other newsletter guys. There used to be a newsletter called Filter Coffee.
exactly. I was actually about to come to that.
So I haven't really met Tanvi
All right, right.
or spoken to her. But from what I heard, they were doing fantastic in terms of opens.
You know what? I've tried reaching out to her multiple times. She has never responded. Hopefully, after listening to this, or if she sees this somewhere, she
Same
responds.
here. I haven't heard back from her
Right,
either.
right. But you know what? I did speak to a couple of people, and her open rates were about 40%, and
Yeah.
even reaching 50% at
Yeah.
some point of time.
Yeah.
Right. And the one thing that I saw was that it really engaged the community it was meant for, probably
Yeah.
because she was only covering startup news,
Yeah.
and the entire. I saw a lot of very prominent names from the startup industry following her on Twitter
Yeah.
and retagging her. And to be honest, I really loved the quirky style of her content.
It was
It
fantastic.
was
I
fantastic.
read every day.
So my I really wanted to come down to this is because she had the same numbers, and
Yeah.
this number of 17,000 I'm quoting actually from her LinkedIn. She'd written an article
Okay.
saying that we've reached 17,000 subs, and that was I don't know how long back, but it was there, and I know shortly after she shut down,
Yeah.
right, and coming at an open rate of 40 to 50%, right? And yet she shut down. And the reason was clear. Of course, the money was not coming in from the VCs, but the fact that there were no advertisers as well that was happening, right?
Yeah.
So, could you just elaborate on what you think about this? And
See, also you have to understand she's running a startup, right?
right,
She has only so many resources and so many hours in the day.
right,
She handles content. I
right.
bet she was handling, I'm speculating here, but I bet she was handling reaching out to advertisers
She
as well.
had 3 to 4 people. I know
Right.
there's one writer, and there were a couple of interns,
Yeah.
and
You can't build a business on the back of interns, right?
that's very true. That's very true. Yeah,
Right. So just reaching out to advertisers is a full-time job. You need to be on it. You need to follow up. You need to find connections. It's very, very challenging to do on your own
right,
and also handle content
right,
and figure out growth strategies
right,
and handle accounts, right?
right.
And she did have a couple of brands who worked with her.
Right, but it's very sad to see, like, some a brand name built up there,
Yeah,
right? You're
yeah,
not just looking at any newsletter or something like that. It was very hardcore, like I said, to the audience, and that particular brand shutting down. Of course, VCs probably would take it, and not only about India. In India, you hardly have that many newsletters, to be
yeah.
honest, right? If you look outside, there's this very interesting thing that has been happening recently, right? A group of newsletter companies called Industry Dive,
Okay.
right? It's sold out for $525 million recently, right? And the one thing which everybody is speaking about is that a BuzzFeed or a Vice, media, they're heavily funded. They are in the news, like, probably 90% more as compared to an Industry Dive. In fact, investors didn't even know about Industry Dive back in the US as well, right? Uh, but still it became a profitable entity. I think it started in about 2012 or something like that, focused only on niche B2B industries, and like you're saying about legal and so
Yeah,
forth, right? And they have always been, I think they broke even, they raised a very small angel round, and they broke even in about 18 months, and post that they've always been profitable,
yeah,
and now people are listening to it after the sellout,
yeah,
right? So you can imagine that the VC kind of aversion to this sector comes from the fact that they've always burned their hands, like Vice
yeah,
Media,
yeah.
BuzzFeed, Vox Media. They're not really generating,
Because you have to understand what is the moat, and if the moat is it's something interesting and engaging,
right,
that is not enough. It has to be measured in terms of impact. Now, the newsletters that you mentioned,
right,
Industry Dive,
right.
these are extremely impactful newsletters.
Exactly, but impactful, but also, it's the audience that they're targeting. Do you think that really makes a difference? Because they're targeting a very niche audience who has the capacity to pay. and they're
Yeah.
a valuable audience to whoever wants to advertise to them.
See, people pay in
Right.
terms of time
Right.
and they pay in terms of money,
Right.
right? So, of course, when it comes to money, your targeting has to be bang on accurate, right?
Right.
When it comes to time,
Right.
there is casual scrolling and there is serious reading or serious consumption.
Right.
And you want to be a player in the media space who has serious attention, because when it comes to casual scrolling, you will never beat the social media platforms that are out there in terms of Instagram or TikTok, globally,
Right.
right? Because they have so much data about you. Their shadow graphs are so powerful
All right.
that they're able to bucket you and serve you content to keep you engaged for not just minutes but for hours.
That
So
happens.
if
Yeah.
you're going to try to engage them by making it interesting, you're going to lose. So if you can't beat them on interest, you can beat them on relevance and impact,
Okay.
right? So if I'm an investor in Facebook
Right.
and I need to know about every product update that Facebook puts out,
Right.
I need to know about all the chatter that's happening around Facebook's management changes, etc. Right now, they're going through a bit of a restructuring phase themselves. As an investor, I'm not going to rely on Instagram or Twitter for that matter to get that information.
Right.
I will rely on something where I'm going to get all that information, at one go.
Right.
So the form factor doesn't matter, whether it was with a person who's dancing and showing me the information, or it's a 550 word article, right?
Right.
What matters is the power of the information and the power of the content.
Okay.
So it's a
So you said that
yeah,
they went out with great content, hooked the right kind of audience, made it
yeah,
impactful for them, and that's how they became. But don't you think that again, coming back to the same thing, it's about the fact that news, like you said earlier, is a commodity at the end of the day. It's the same news is available everywhere except for certain opinions of certain people who, let's just call them influencers in today's
intellectual
world.
influencers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that is what separates other news media companies as opposed to these guys, because they targeted a highly valuable audience, I would say. And even
right.
if it was limited 2000, 3000, 4000 numbers, and but you're generating huge advertisement revenues.
Yeah,
And so how do I know you'd want to say that you're going to solve this through content when it comes
yeah,
down through commodity, but is there anything else that you've thought of to solve for this commoditization?
yeah, absolutely right. So why did we focus on commoditized content?
Right.
Because it's the largest information vertical,
Right.
right? It will help me get to critical mass in terms of users.
Initially that push
Initially,
is there, yeah.
initial push
Right.
is there, right?
Right.
There is some differentiation. It may not last for too long, because at
Exactly.
the end of the day, what are we doing? Bullet point news,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
There's a limited amount of we've reinvented the wheel slightly.
All right.
When you get to that critical mass,
Right.
now when you look at traditional news publications,
Right.
they're closed ecosystems.
All
The
right.
opinion content that comes out comes through great levels of diligence,
Right.
right? And at the other end of the spectrum, you've got Twitter, where it's user generated content.
Right.
So you've got tons of people writing, chatting about anything. There's some people who are really smart, and some people are just saying stuff for the sake of saying stuff.
Right.
Then there's a middle ground, right,
Right.
which is expert generated content,
Right.
EGC.
Okay.
So we believe that once we've achieved a critical mass of users,
Okay.
now we need to help them consume every niche of content that they're interested in
Okay.
or that matters to them
All right.
on a single platform in any format.
All right.
So for me to be able to do that, I need to open up my ecosystem to third party experts. What is an expert?
All right.
Anybody who has experience in a particular subject matter is an
Okay.
expert,
Okay.
right? It could be in terms of opinions, it could be in
All
terms of
right.
analysis. So we're not anti opinions. We think opinions is very important to information discourse,
All right. All right.
right? But we are not going to generate opinions as a publication,
Okay.
and we are not going to be the gatekeepers of opinions either,
Okay.
right? So as long as you're a subject matter expert
Right.
who wants to communicate with an audience or reach out to an audience and
Right.
build a following or build some kind of brand image or maybe even monetize your content
Right.
to a particular set of users away from the distractions of entertainment, because you don't want to be dancing in front of a video while you're trying to
All right.
consume portray
All
information.
right.
We want to be the platform for you.
Have you tried this so far? Has anybody approached you to do that, or have
Yes,
you
so
reached
in the
out?
newsletter itself,
Right.
we've worked with a couple of people and we featured them in periodic blocks in the newsletter.
All
So
right.
we have a roundups block, right,
All right.
where in which you click on the legal section, you go to legal. We work with a couple of other brands and newsletters
Okay.
to showcase themselves as subject matter experts.
All right. So was this like as part of an advertising
No,
agreement
it
where
was
you?
just experimentation, right? So we
All
work
right.
with a US based newsletter
Right.
and we wanted to see whether there is any part of our audience which is interested in US internal policy,
All right.
because the news that we consume right now
Right.
is purely, it's all international affairs in the sense of what is the US foreign policy. But when you think about how the Supreme Court judgments in the US, how they sort of percolate through society globally,
All right.
the US pretty much sets the tone to start off with, even when it comes to LGBTQ plus rights,
All right.
right?
All
That's how
right.
you see the
All
percolation
right.
through the world.
All right.
So there are some people who may be interested in that content. Maybe it's a very small micro community, right? So we
Right.
wanted to see whether we could partner with this newsletter and see
Right.
whether any of our audience is super interested. And there weren't too many people who were interested. It
Right.
was less than 50.
Right.
But every edition, those 50 people opened it,
Okay.
right? So that's when you realize, okay, at the end of the day, as an intellectual influencer, you have to understand not everybody wants to have a million followers,
Exactly.
right?
Right.
So can you solve the discovery challenge for them
All right.
and get them the audience that is looking for their information?
Right.
And can you help them build a micro community
All right.
and allow them to set their own incentives, whether they're doing it for fun, they're doing it for money, they're doing it for social commerce,
All right.
they're doing it for pay per view, you leave it up to them.
All right.
And if you've accumulated enough niches and you have enough of an audience base, it automatically turns into an advertising engine.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Sajal, I'm going to end this with one major question, right? This entire thing is, you've seen a lot of this newsletter space explode. Not explode. I think it's reached quite a. I don't know where it goes from here, but a couple of years back, nobody knew about it. The skim all of a sudden, exploded, and then you had the Morning Brew, you had the Axios, and Axios pretty much does a lot of stuff like helping brands create their own newsletters as well.
Yeah,
The tech stack, right?
yeah.
uh, all these things that have happened out there, and surprisingly enough, nothing has happened in India in this space. Like, you hardly see people making. Do you think it's just starting out about now, or where do you see it going, as compared to the US, when you look at Indian media startups per se?
I think it's going to be very difficult
Right.
in India to scale uh, these kind of startups
All right.
until somebody gets an exit, and then the VCs are a lot more receptive to helping people out in terms of scaling and building these businesses
But
fast.
then, don't you think these are lifestyle businesses and they can help, like, sustain? Let's say, how large is your team? How big is your
So
team?
my team is we got four writers, two engineers, and me.
So that's 6, 7 people
Yeah,
in total, right?
yeah.
So do you think it's even difficult as a lifestyle business to build up, and you still need,
Yeah, so look, when it comes to scaling, right,
right?
it's a function of marketing dollars.
Exactly.
So maybe we can achieve product market fit before VC money comes in.
All right.
So you don't need VC money to get to that stage.
All right.
But on the scaling side, if you want to become a media powerhouse and you want to compete with maybe not the Times of India, but at least with the BuzzFeed in India,
Right.
it's going to require money, right?
Makes
Because
sense.
you need to get the attention of people and they need to know who you are,
Right.
and that costs money in terms of uh, hard advertising dollars and in terms of having enough
But
personnel.
but I don't want people to look at it just as a space. I think in India, what's really and it's because of the media narrative. I feel that everybody, somebody who's opening a shop also is calling themselves a startup,
Yeah,
and they somehow want to raise funds for it.
yeah.
Right. So just getting away from the VC narrative and just getting away from the fact, do you think it's a sustainable lifestyle business without any VC money and at a limited
One
scale?
100%,
All right.
right? And I will tell you, because I was the guy who made the mistake of building for VCs.
All right. So
So I
you're
wasted,
admitting that, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
6 months I wasted on an app.
Right.
We scrapped an app and then we built it again.
Right. So do you have an app right now? No, right?
It's we have it,
All
we
right.
haven't launched it because we don't have the marketing dollars for
All
it.
right. Makes sense.
So we're gonna wait till we can get to that third party ecosystem phase. We have
All right.
20 to 50 creators,
All right.
and then launch the app in a meaningful way.
All right.
Because if the app is just going to do what the email newsletter does, there
Right.
isn't enough differentiation,
Exactly.
and so then it's better
And
to consume that content on email
and getting
itself.
someone to download an app, retain, engage them, everything is going to be quite a
Yeah,
hassle.
look,
Yeah, it
I
requires
would say
money.
it's even getting people to open an app is really hard. They won't uninstall the app,
Right.
right? Uninstall rates are quite low on the app,
All right.
but getting them to open the app is very, very challenging.
All right.
So why go if you're just going to do what you're doing on email on an app? What's
Exactly.
the point of doing that to begin with? So I
Exactly.
wasted 6 months chasing VCs
All right.
in terms of building for them and then trying to
Right.
fundraise. And when we took a step back, and when I told you I went through that crisis of do I continue doing this? Because my bosses called up and said, "You want to come back and
All
work
right.
for and banking pays quite well." And I was thinking maybe I should move back to London. I
Right.
got married last year.
All right.
I'm going to have bills to pay at some point,
Exactly.
so let's get a little serious about our life.
Right.
I sat down with my dad, and he said, "Listen, what is your asset today? I said, look, my assets are I have 15,000 subscribers
Right.
and I've got a really deep understanding of how to get emails into the primary inbox.
Right.
So he said, look, you've not even tried to monetize. 12 months, you just built a business. You didn't speak to single advertisers.
Right.
Why don't you go and at least try and get a sense for, you should never feel like I was almost there.
Okay.
So when we spoke to advertisers, some of them were receptive, some of them not, but we started to generate some form of revenue where I think in the next 3 months we'll break even on a monthly basis.
Okay.
मेरे घर से पैसा नहीं जाएगा
Okay.
anymore,
Okay.
right?
So you're talking about the coming 3 months.
Yeah, in the coming 3 months. So
All right.
we've been growing every month in terms of revenue.
Right.
And then the other part was newsletters. And we reached out to a couple of brands, and some of them have, especially the guys who have tried and failed,
Right.
were very intrigued. So the crypto company that we are working with,
Right.
they have 99% open rates on transaction emails and 4% open rates on their email newsletter that goes out to people.
Okay.
So we know exactly what was wrong, and we can help them out on that particular front.
All right.
So this suddenly became a sustainable, recurring revenue business
All
on the
right.
B2B front.
Exactly.
And
If you don't mind
yeah,
sharing, what is this? How many? No, I mean, what is the number of clients that you have, and what is the revenue that you're generating?
so we have about 3 clients right now.
All right.
And in terms of the revenue that we're going to be generating over the next 3 months, we we will break even for sure.
All right. So,
Yeah.
in terms of the ARR, if you don't mind, like the entire, including advertisement and including this thing, you have any?
I don't, because advertisement is lumpy, right? There's
All
some
right.
months when it does well, some
Right.
months it
Right. Right.
doesn't. So I'll tell you our
You
advertisement
can choose
rates.
choose to ignore this question,
Yeah,
by
yeah,
the
no,
way.
but
Yeah.
I'll tell you our advertising rates, right?
Right.
So we'll charge anywhere from 1 to 2 rupees per subscriber that our email goes out to, right?
Goes out to or opens?
Goes out to.
Okay.
So I would rather charge on a cost per unique open basis,
Right.
but the industry is believes in cost per subscriber.
Okay.
That's how pricing has been done.
All right.
Um, and we priced it according to what we've seen other mass distribution email platforms do.
Okay.
So we've spoken to a lot of them because we were initially thinking about advertising through them itself, and we realized what the rates are generally speaking.
Right.
So if I sell 15 days of ad inventory at 17,000 subscribers, you can do the math and you know what I would be doing
Makes
in terms
sense.
of revenue.
Right.
So now if I can grow from 17,000, I can reinvest the cash and grow to 30,000 subs. For the same inventory of 15 days, my value goes up further. Maybe I might have to take a bit of a drop in the 1 to 2 rupee range and maybe go down a couple of paise, because advertisers say, okay, more scale, but I don't want to pay you so much.
Exactly.
You
The
have
more you
10 lakh
grow.
subs, I'm not going to pay 10 lakh rupees, right?
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
not going to happen.
Right.
So it's that is the advertising portion.
Right.
On the B2B newsletter front, there's a cost associated with sending the email, there's a cost associated with content generation. So depending on whether somebody wants to do daily newsletters or weekly newsletters, the content creation cost will change accordingly,
All
right?
right. All right.
And on the email delivery front, for people who have a list size of about a lakh,
Right.
we'll end up charging them 10 paisa per email sent,
Okay.
which is very cost effective.
Okay.
Because we built our own tech stack
Right.
on AWS,
Right.
we're not like other email marketing companies which have built it on another solution. So, for
Okay.
example, um, there are these guys, Mailmodo, who's very popular right now because of their dynamic email templates. They
Okay.
built on Spark Post, and Spark Post is built on AWS.
Okay.
So we cut out like one portion of the costs.
All
But
right.
then, of course, we don't have as many features as Mailmodo today. So we,
Right.
appeal to a certain type of
But I'm
client.
assuming that this is a very interesting solution for a lot of brands in today's.
100%,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Over time, once we hit a certain level of scale,
Right.
we'll also help brands do transactional emails and promotional emails as well,
Right.
assuming they don't want to just do content-based newsletters.
Right.
And we can be very, very cost effective on this front. And this will provide a level of stability, because advertisers there this month, market changes, they're not there this next month.
Right.
But this can give me a certain level of recurring revenue and stable revenue that can keep the lights on.
Wow.
And
That's
I can move from survival mode to growth. That is what the
makes
objective
sense. And
is.
what you're saying is after 3 months, you're going to be at least profitable or breaking even. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll start being able to recover a little bit of the money that I've been putting in,
All right.
which
That's
is
great.
good.
All right. So as a lifestyle business, it's sustainable. You made a mistake of
100%.
going to the VCs and kind of building it out for them earlier.
Yeah, I think not going to the VCs, I would say the mistake was building for them.
Right.
You got to build for. Look, you have to understand your business has to add value.
Right. Exactly.
And I came from a sector, investment banking, which adds no value to society.
All right.
Right?
All right.
Finance guys, we don't add any value, whether you're a stockbroker, stock trader, or an investment banker for
All
that
right.
matter.
All right.
They're highly paid
Individuals.
corporate guys.
All right.
So From that standpoint, you have to understand what is the long-term value creation of your business. And if the value creation is I can make your life, I can make it really interesting for you to read something.
Exactly.
That's just like a physical book. You read it once, really amazing Harry Potter novel. Read it once, I don't read it again. So, what is a good business? Being the Harry Potter or being the book distribution company? So,
Is-
you want to be the book distribution company because you're providing a variety of books that people can read through their lifetime.
Right. Makes sense.
So, when you start thinking about media businesses this way, like
Right.
you guys, right, with Pratilipi, your podcast is adding value because you are holding the distribution channel.
Right. Right.
So it's very different from you being a person who is just running a particular kind of podcast, right? You will have that growth and that decline. So you'll reach a critical mass of users and then you will peak if you're
Right.
just a content company.
Right.
And this is why VCs don't invest in content
In
companies.
companies. I think that's major learning, which I think needs to go out also to a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs. And because very recently somebody wrote to me on LinkedIn about something, and the discussion, and that guy is from IIMC, which is like the known institute
Yeah.
for journalism in India, right? And he met me through someone as well post that, and the discussion was around. He said, he's from Maharashtra, and he said, there's so many newspapers out there, and so, and he gave me some very interesting numbers, by the way. But one thing which he was constantly focused on was, I want to raise money and I want to build a marketplace. And I said, just one question: how are you going to generate revenue out of this?
Yeah.
And he said, first I'll pay him money.
Yeah.
So that concept of it's just been built for VCs,
Yeah.
pay out money to get the consumer and not really focus on the end value, because at the end value you're not adding any additional value to anybody in the entire ecosystem,
Yeah.
neither to the readers, neither to the news papers who are coming on board with you. So I think that's been it's great actually coming from someone who's done this and has actually faced it, and you
Yeah.
now speaking about it openly. That's really great, because this message needs to go out that not everything is meant for VCs.
Yeah.
You can build amazing business models even without them, and you just need to build a business like a proper.
See, look at local news.
Right.
Vernacular local news is an outstanding business.
Can you just what, I think we'll just extend this by another 5 minutes.
Yeah,
It's
no
getting
problem.
longer, but I really want to understand if you have an idea about local news, if you
Yeah,
can
so
explain that.
I have a friend who's is a stock investor,
All right.
value investing guy. So really looks at the fundamentals of business.
All right.
And when I started this out, I've been having a lot of discussions with him. So he said, "Such local vernacular businesses are great."
Okay.
And I said, "Why?" He said, "Look, the ad revenue potential there, the amount they're able to monetize is
Okay.
much higher."
All right.
I asked him why. He said, "Look, they're local businesses, right? Local businesses want local audiences. Not everybody wants to market to everybody across the country. So
Okay.
local businesses have the ability to at least narrow it down to a particular demographic."
Awesome. Yeah.
And you think about information asymmetry.
Right.
So the Times of India app is available in 14 languages,
Right.
but it's not the same article available in 14 languages.
Okay.
When you switch from English to Kannada, it's a different newspaper altogether on the
Right.
app,
Yeah. I'm
right?
sure the
So there's
the
information
Kannada
asymmetry where national news is very poorly covered in Kannada and local Karnataka news is very poorly covered in English.
Okay.
So that also is a massive opportunity
Okay. There's
if
a
we're
lot of
able to solve
asymmetry.
this
Okay.
this balance. Like for example, I don't know if you face this, but COVID guidelines when they were getting updated in Bangalore,
Right.
I had no idea where to look. In the sense that, am I allowed to go out with a mask? Am I not allowed to go out right now? What is really going on? You know,
There's
when
just a lot
during
of
the peak,
confusing blogs on the internet at that point of
ton
time,
of
right?
confusing
Some of them were
blogs.
outdated as well.
Exactly.
Right.
And then
Right.
a lot of people in Bangalore is a cosmopolitan city. A lot of people don't know how to read Kannada.
Right.
So you have a big challenge in terms of trying to figure out what the BBMP has put out as the latest notice. And they have put it out. The
Yeah.
problem is, how does that information get to me? Then you have a bunch of WhatsApp forwards. Some of them are true, some of them
Right. Right. Right.
and so then you're super, super confused. So when you think about local news,
Right.
they're solving a real problem.
I think that's a very interesting space, because in Maharashtra, when I was speaking to this guy I mentioned about, he did mention that Maharashtra has about, I don't know, I haven't cross checked these numbers, so I'll just put it out with a disclaimer out here, that he said that there are about 1,200 newspapers in Maharashtra, and they're divided on the basis of tehsils.
Right.
So the administrative unit, like state, city. I mean, what do you call it? Sorry, district. From district you go down to, I think, tehsil or taluk or something like that, right? So he said that 1,200 newspapers, and a lot of these. So he gave me one particular example. He said this guy has 200 WhatsApp groups of 256 people each. His reporters are freelancers.
Yeah.
His designers are freelancers. and he only provides news to his particular tehsil, and a very small portion of them actually ask for physical newspapers because they're used to it. Probably somebody old is in the house or something like that. Granddad really wants to read. So there he charges a premium. Otherwise, the news comes in from a freelancer. A freelancer graphic designer just puts it out on a PDF and he distributes it to his entire network.
Yeah.
And I asked, and then there are also people who are kind of his sales agents. Again, they are freelancers because they're freelancing for entire, how many newspapers that they can get hold of, and they get a commission based on whatever advertisement that they get.
Yeah.
So his earnings, that particular person, and this is a one-man full-time operation, he's earning 25 to about 28 to 30K per month in his pocket after meeting all his expenses,
Right.
right? So, and he's operating it at a tehsil level.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that there's a lot of scope for local news, and like you said, particularly capturing what do you call it? Let's say an urban area like Bangalore, you can actually start targeting them minutely,
100%.
and the number of advertisers that are going to be here, this is a tier one audience ready to pay for a lot of stuff. Disposable income is very high, so you see that kind of playing out in the near future.
100%, right?
Right.
So when we say daily information marketplace, you want to be able to address the smallest of niches, which is not just category related, it's also location related.
Wow. All right.
So if you can give the entire spectrum,
Right.
you can allow an advertiser to have amazing power in terms of targeting.
All right.
So local news is this is why local newspapers are on a unit economics basis,
They really thrive.
they really thrive. Yeah.
All right. I
Yeah.
think they're not, of course, VC investable, but they're,
Yeah.
of course, there. But cool. You know what, Sajal, this has been an amazing chat. And, particularly from the viewpoint that not many people in India are so open to sharing numbers, to be very
Yeah,
frank.
yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's a very big challenge. And, it's a culture of the country. You can't really blame anybody for that, but it's great for someone to come out and speak about it so openly. And
How can I be the runner of the boring news company? Our tagline is straight to the point and not be to the point, right?
That's
So
great. That's great. So where can people find you? Boring News.
.co.
Co.
Yeah.
So boringnews.co, they can go out and subscribe, and I'll probably put it out in the link as well wherever
Thank
I'm
you.
putting it out. Right. So once again, thanks Sajal for coming down here, and wishing you all the best
Thank you,
for
and
what you're
thanks for
doing.
having me. Really had fun
Great.
recording this.
Great. Thank you. Bye bye.